Throughout the history of the Overwatch League, many tournaments have been played, some good and some bad. What makes a tournament good tends to be either having very close games or very good storylines. Season 4 was no exception. There were 4 stage tournaments and the playoffs. Some of these tournaments were definitely a lot better than others though. However, 2021 was definitely a very weird season, being our first season to be played exclusively online. Today, I'm going to be looking at the 2021 Atlanta Reign, and how they managed to complete the greatest lower bracket run in Overwatch League history. However, in order to understand how they got there, we need to talk about the rest of their season. In the off-season between 2020 and 2021, the Atlanta Reign made some serious changes. In the 2020 season, the Atlanta Reign were relatively disappointing. The team was hyped up, and they were unable to perform to their expectations, and showed very poor results. They became known as gatekeepers, beating the bad teams but never being able to beat the good ones. So, in the off-season, the Atlanta Reign made some serious changes, dropping Erster, Sharp, Saucy, Fried Wiener, Pokpo, Fire, and Dogman. This left the team with a very small roster. At tank, the team still had Hawk and Gator, and Masa and Iris still held down the backline. However, on DPS, they only had Addison, so they needed to make some serious moves, and the moves they made were quite big. The first pickup they made was to pick up Kai, formerly known as KSP, from the LA Valiant. Kai is a British hitscan player, and instantly made a huge upgrade on their team. The other upgrade they made was acquiring Pelican, a rookie Korean DPS player from O2 Blast. Although the team was small, they still looked relatively strong. However, their season did not quite start the way they wanted. In the May Melee, the Atlanta Reign started off pretty poorly, going 1-3, not only losing to the Shock on map 5, but also having a terrible reverse sweep against the Toronto Defiant, and not being even able to make it to the knockouts for the May Melee tournament. People saw the results and just assumed it was going to be another mediocre year for Atlanta. However, the Reign had other plans. Heading into the June Joust, they definitely turned it up a notch, but people really weren't quite sure how far this team could go. Yeah, they beat London and Vancouver, but everyone figured that they beat London and Vancouver, and they lost to the Gladiators, just as people anticipated. What no one expected was for the Atlanta Reign to give the Houston Outlaws their first loss of the regular season, and then ended up making it to the knockouts, finishing the stage 3-1. Facing off against the Boston Uprising in the knockouts, the Atlanta Reign rolled them in a dominant fashion to face off against the former champions, the San Francisco Shock. Most people at the time had the San Francisco Shock beating the Reign, especially since they had already beaten them earlier, and they were looking to be one of the strongest teams in the West at the time. The current meta at the time was a weird Moira Lucio zombie comp, and the Reign had not been known to practice it. However, they came out and absolutely showed their dominance by 3-0ing the Shock and making it to the tournament. In the June Joust tournament itself, the Atlanta Reign easily dismantled the NYXL and put up a pretty good fight against the Dallas Fuel and the Shanghai Dragons, 2 of the best teams that year. They didn't win, but a bronze medal is still better than anything else they had that year, and more than anyone expected from them. When the Summer Showdown started, people were really curious to see just how far the Atlanta Reign could go, and whether or not the June Joust run was a fluke or not. The Reign also went 3-1 this stage, destroying most of their opponents with ease, and going to map 5 with the Dallas Fuel, a game that they definitely could have won. Atlanta were a top seed heading into the knockouts, and they managed to beat the Gladiators in a very close map 5 win, making it to their second tournament in a row. Although they made it to the tournament, they really got tossed around by Shanghai, and although they put up a pretty good fight against Dallas Fuel in the lower bracket, they were quickly knocked out of the tournament in another crazy map 5 series. At this point of the season, people considered Atlanta to be a pretty good team, but not that good. They didn't expect them to do all that well. However, a lot of those expectations changed heading into the Countdown Cup. The Reign had a very tough schedule in the Countdown Cup, going up against the Outlaws, Fuel, Gladiators, and Mayhem. Now, although the Mayhem had fallen off at this point in the season, the other 3 teams were seriously no joke, and the Atlanta Reign really had to show what they're made of. That being said, it is important to note that both the Shanghai Dragons and the Dallas Fuel were not really trying that hard in this tournament, and they were taking it easy since they had already been confirmed for playoffs, so they were not at 100% capacity. However, the Atlanta Reign still managed to beat Dallas, and on top of that were able to get a win against the Houston Outlaws and the LA Gladiators, making it to the knockouts with a 4-0 stage. However, midway through the tournament, disaster struck, as their main flex DPS Pelican had to undergo surgery, which meant he couldn't play throughout the tournament. Luckily, the Atlanta Reign still had Edison to play, but there was a noticeable difference. Despite missing Pelican, the Atlanta Reign still managed to beat the Toronto Defiant 3-1 and made it to the tournament, where they would promptly beat the Seoul Dynasty 3-1. However, it was clear that the lack of Pelican was really taking a toll on this team, and they would end up getting 3-0'd by both the Gladiators and the Chengdu Hunters, eliminating them from their third tournament. All that being said, the Atlanta Reign still had a very good regular season, starting at 1-3 and finishing 11-5 overall, which is a pretty good regular season score, and ended up placing 5th overall in the regular season, as well as making it to 3 out of 4 of the tournaments. When the playoffs started, the Atlanta Reign were predicted to be an alright team, but were not thought to be going all that far, thinking maybe they'll be knocked out after a round or two, but oh, how wrong they were. In the first match, they went up against the Chengdu Hunters, a team they were not able to beat throughout the whole year, and they really brought their A-game, pushing them to their absolute limits. However, they were unable to beat them, losing in a tragic Map 5 fashion 2-3. It was very close, and if a couple of fights had gone differently, the Atlanta Reign probably could have won this game. However, the Chengdu Hunters showed their strength. This is the year that Leave was having his fantastic MVP performance, and he really put on a show during this game, running laps around the Atlanta Reign. With the Reign knocked into the lower bracket, people expected them to probably win a game or two and then lose, and their first match was against the Washington Justice, which was a game that people expected them to win. The Justice were alright that year, but they were nothing to write home about, as their inconsistency really held them back, and the Atlanta Reign quickly hit them with a 3-0. They moved on to their next match against the LA Gladiators, a team which had recently beaten them in the Countdown Cup 3-0, and the Atlanta Reign seemed to be quite upset about that. In a ballsy move during their match, the Atlanta Reign took the LA Gladiators to Hanamura, a map in which the Gladiators had set a record against the Atlanta Reign only a few weeks prior, but it was very clear that the Atlanta Reign had really practiced and were quite prepared for the Gladiators this time around, not only winning that map, but also getting a great map win right after that, setting them up for success to win a Map 5 banger for a huge upset, guaranteeing the Atlanta Reign a top 4 finish. On the other side of the lower bracket, the San Francisco Shock also had an upset against the Chengdu Hunters, taking them to a Map 6 and going up against the Atlanta Reign in the losers finals. This game was close, at least at first, with the Shock winning the first map. However, the Reign showed their skills on Hanamura and tied up the game. However, on King's Row, Violet made a crucial error, ego jumping directly into Kai's line of sight, and you know that Kai does not miss those, giving the Reign a free point. The Reign then snowballed from there and won the series 3-1, and moved on to the winners finals against the Dallas Fuel. Dallas were absolutely expected to win this game, as them and Shanghai were widely considered to be the two best teams that year, and people were ready for them to face off in the finals. However, the Atlanta Reign had other plans. The Atlanta Reign were well known for their signature rush composition, with Gator on the Reinhardt, Hawk on the Diva, and the backline running it down on the Baptiste Lucio. Pelican was very flexible, and could play Mei, Echo, or pretty much whatever else he needed to, and Kai was one of the best hit scans in the world. It was clear that the Dallas Fuel were just not ready for this team, and in one of the biggest upset matches in Overwatch League history, the Atlanta Reign beat the Dallas Fuel 3-1 and made it all the way to the Grand Finals. At the beginning of the season, no one would have expected the Atlanta Reign to get anywhere near the finals, but the team synergy and rush composition was able to elevate them to a new level, completing a full losers bracket run, and breaking the hearts of all Fuel fans. At least Dallas fans were happy the following year. Though, despite the crazy run, they were unable to beat Shanghai in the finals, as they were just too good, but they really did make the 2021 playoffs much more memorable. This team was certainly something special, and I'm sure all Atlanta fans remember this season fondly. I know I do. The 2021 Atlanta Reign really showed us that anything can happen in tournaments, and they definitely made it a lot more interesting to watch. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider checking out the other videos I've made. If you liked my content, please consider subscribing to see some more. I really appreciate the support I've gotten recently, and I'm really excited to keep making more videos about Overwatch esports, so please stay tuned. Thank you all so much for watching.